God is dead, Nietzsche famously said. We've killed him, he freely admits. But what Nietzsche then shows is how God's murder blows every rule that we live by to bits. Atheism was nothing new, with the 20th century coming into view and Darwin and Marx beginning to cut through, but with one impertinent observation, Nietzsche subverted the very foundations of so-called Western civilization. It's awkward, it's irrational, it's embarrassing, it's so odd, but we've acquired all our values from a non-existent God. And if our modern morals, our beliefs of every kind, do not derive from some divine, all-knowing higher mind, then it's urgent that we ask, are they suited to the task, or should they be ripped up and redefined? This notion would have come as a complete disaster to Nietzsche's father, a Lutheran pastor, although we'll never know what the pastor had to say, as he, like God, had long passed away. Brought up near Leipzig by mother and grandma and two unmarried aunts, young Friedrich Nietzsche was arty and bright, but with a rebellious stance. His fondness for half-mad poets was not seen as a major defect, though when he and a pal turned up to school drunk, he was swiftly demoted from prefect. At college, at 20, he lost his faith and dropped his theology course, studied linguistics, then joined the army, but injured himself on a horse. Once a fine rider, now struggling to walk, a lesson that life can be harsh. He returned to academia and nurtured his bushy moustache. A professor in Basel, he taught and he wrote, but his health was forever in question, as he suffered from dysentery, syphilis, diphtheria, migraines and fierce indigestion. So at 35 he waved goodbye to his professorial chair and divided his time between healthier climes, Italian and fresh alpine air. For 10 more years his writing poured out with indestructible force, till his life was turned upside down once again due in part to a horse. On a Turin street, he intervened to stop a coach horse being whipped, then collapsed to the ground, and no one knows why. His mind completely flipped. A mental breakdown without a cure. For 10 more years he had to endure a form of dementia which inexorably spread, till, aged 55, he, like God, was dead. Though Nietzsche is called a philosopher, he stretches the definition, writing more like an artist or a polemicist than an analyst or a logician. Of all the great thinkers, he's almost unique in insisting philosophy's not a critique or a reasoned attempt for two sides to agree, but a full-on bombardment of hyperbole. A maelstrom of ideas, confrontational, vivid, wild, all wrapped up and delivered in a dangerous, dazzling style. Explosively he wrote, "I'm not a man, I'm dynamite," and when it came to old philosophers, he loved to pick a fight. Kant was a moral fanatic, Plato was just a bore, John Stuart Mill a blockhead, whose do-gooding the world should ignore. In his pyrotechnic prose, a sense of mischief always lurks, with unpredictable turns of phrase, igniting all of his works. He complained we've still not got rid of God, because we believe in grammar. He even subtitled one book, How to Philosophize with a Hammer. In his memoirs, chapter headings, there's no modesty whatsoever. Why I'm so wise, why I write such good books, and why I am so clever. When's he being serious? When's he tongue-in-cheek? Being open to interpretation adds to his mystique. The history of philosophy has not produced a finer crafter of the pithy, stark, provocative one-liner. A thought encapsulated in words that say it all, perfect for a poster on a moody student's wall. Become who you are. Or, if you'd like something longer, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. This world has many diseases, and one of them's called man. After meeting someone religious, I always need to wash my hands. He covered the range from personal angst to wider society's woes. A politician's mind divides humankind into two types, tools and foes. Words that prove prophetic in a way Nietzsche wouldn't like, as after his death he himself was a tool of Hitler and the Third Reich. Like any megalomaniac not bothered how it looks, Nietzsche gave 5-star reviews to each of his own books, and with Thus Spake Zarathustra he really upped the ante, insisting it's way better than Goethe, Shakespeare or Dante. Thus spake Friedrich Nietzsche, a far from humble creature. Convinced that enlightened science had now killed off God's authority, how to fill the almighty void was now Nietzsche's main priority. His feelings about the death of God were of pure unbridled joy. The notion of heaven or paradise, a lie he was keen to destroy. For Nietzsche, belief in a different world is a self-defeating idea, as it threatens and belittles the importance of life right here. Life in this world must be embraced. To dream of another is simply a waste. The afterlife is anti-life. It cheapens each living breath. And every so-called holy man is, for Nietzsche, a preacher of death. To map out the catastrophe that Paradise had inspired, 6 punchy paragraphs was all that Nietzsche required. In the twilight of the idols, he lays out stage by stage 2,500 years of thinking in one chapter on one page. In this history of an era, it was Plato who first set the tone by implying his world of perfect forms was more real than our own. A delusion that was then broadened to fit the Christian view that there's a heaven for the pious, and that is paragraph 2. Step 3 belongs to Immanuel Kant, with his devastating blow that a heavenly world is one that we on earth can never know. At step 4 steps in Nietzsche, saying if that's the situation, how can we owe an unknown world any obligation? Step 5, so let's abolish it. Step 6, what does that leave? Just this, less real, apparent world. Apparent? No, believe. This is the world. This is the world. There never have been two. And now we've cleared that error up. Let's work out what to do. Since God is no longer with us, we must re-evaluate any rules of life based on his so-called word. It's all up for debate. Forget all Christian dogma, Father, Son and Holy Ghost. What's our brand new starting point? What really matters most? Nietzsche, having raised this necessary question, disappointed many with his subsequent suggestion, though his answer is of great appeal to egomaniacs. Don't think about other people. Just live your own life to the max. Be strong. Create your own values. Live without any rules. To sheepishly follow the law of the land is the destiny of weak fools. Nothing is more important than you. No one should stand in your way. Life's there to be grabbed, so grab it. Carpe diem. Seize the day. Carpe vitam, seize life, live freely. What could be greater than this? To even consider the consequences is simply cowardice. Is the fulfillment of every desire a recipe for success? Apply it to all of society and it's one chaotic mess, to which Nietzsche would offer the caveat, he is in no way a democrat. The principle of equality has no part in his plan. Any law we install based on one size fits all stifles the greatness in man. How does mankind make progress? Do you listen to the mob or make space for the best and the brightest to thrive and let them get on with the job? For Nietzsche, civilization is advanced by the elite, driving humanity forward while the rabble just take a back seat. All societies in decline have decadent attributes when the strong, smart and proud get reined in by the crowd. Democracy dilutes. The elite have the right to be selfish. To side with the masses is wrong. Laws based upon Christian values have unjustly weakened the strong. The strong deserve to have power, as by force they could win every quarrel. Concepts like peace and compassion are contricts, rebranded as moral, devised to tame instinct, aggression and pride, watering down what's noble inside. Nietzsche laid the blame in part at Socrates' bare feet for introducing reason to the man in the street, using freedom of expression as a tool against suppression, emboldening the common herd to question the elite. Then along came Jesus to claim God guarantees us a place in paradise free from earthly vice. If we turn the other cheek, we'll feel the power of love release us. A message Nietzsche rails against, as only Nietzsche can. The New Testament's the gospel of the most ignoble type of man. Still, now that God was dead, the strong could rule instead. The strong-willed, the strong-minded once again could prove their worth and ensure that the meek did not inherit the earth. With all the old values cast to one side, another victim to fall was objective truth, which, with no God to judge it, now doesn't exist at all. Truth's an illusion that man creates and, if it suits him, manipulates, and just as simply destroys. A purely self-centered attempt to bring order to a world of chaos and noise. Objective truths are not real things waiting to be found, but assertions of will imposed by the strong, to which the weak feel bound. In another of Nietzsche's grim proclamations, there are no facts, just interpretations. His rejection of basic values is such a recurring feature. Not for nothing is nihilism linked to the name of Nietzsche. Though for him the reason our plight is so dire is down to man's desperate yet pointless desire to seek out some meaning in life. Dissatisfied, disjointed at being cruelly disappointed, mankind's intense resentment is why nihilism's rife. To seek truth or meaning or knowledge is futile and dangerous too. If you look too long into the abyss will look into you. Nietzsche warned that the future was bleak. Disillusion would come to the boil, and a barbaric age of terror would flourish in resentment's fertile soil. Apocalyptic or ironic? Which way is Nietzsche leaning? It's the reader's dilemma to work out which, with a writing style he deliberately pitched between image and literal meaning. The 20th century horrors to come were not what he foresaw, and yet, when it came to the deaths of millions, Nietzsche's writing just called for more. If humanity went through a bad patch, he didn't care how many died. Suffering's just part of the process till we get to the other side. Then, striding out of the rubble, comes the next phase of his plan. The ultimate human being. The Ubermensch. Superman. The Superman, for Nietzsche, is a man who is yet to exist. Napoleon came close, as did Goethe. After them, it's a very short list. The Ubermensch seizes hold of his fate, a man above all the rest, a self that refuses to be unselfed, a life lived to the full, unrepressed, fueled by Nietzsche's will to power, an idea he adapted from Schopenhauer. Both of their worlds were whirlpools of will, but where Schopenhauer got it wrong was to say that will is a terrible force. No, it's will that makes mankind strong. The will to power is in all of us. The will to power is a drive, the most positive affirmation of the will to be alive. Alive in Nietzsche's full meaning, free from common morality. The will to power embodies the essence of individuality. The will to power is a hungry desire we channel the best way we can, and is part of a conscious self-overcoming that peaks in the Superman. A great self must be self-critical and destroy any weakness inside, though of course What's defined as a weakness is for the great self to decide. The Ubermensch is a fantasy, a mythical invention, but that and ideas like the will to power have grabbed many fascists' attention, giving their brutal objectives an intellectual lift. Mussolini received Nietzsche's books from Hitler as a birthday gift, and though Hitler came to power decades after his death, Nietzsche and the Nazis are frequently mentioned in the same breath. Defending Nietzsche's not easy with his controversial views, yet he did end his friendship with Wagner over Wagner's contempt for Jews. He had no time for populist leaders or nationalistic endeavour, and thought Deutschland über alles the most ridiculous slogan ever. Did Nietzsche's denial of morality go further than most would go? Yes. Would Nietzsche have joined the Nazi Party? Almost certainly no. Madman or genius? The debate is often sparked when a person crosses boundaries or oversteps the mark, but from his style of writing and hostility to the masses, we can guess at Nietzsche's answer. Genius, you asses! Nietzsche's individualistic, vehement insistence that each of us alone defines the meaning of existence spelled freedom of a kind from high judgmentalism and paved the lonely way towards existentialism. That only you give meaning to what you choose to do, how you live, what rules you live by. It's all up to you. The 20th century art world was inspired by his voice. Playwrights like Strindberg and George Bernard Shaw, authors like Lawrence, Mann, Joyce, though in P.G. Wodehouse the butler Jeeves informs Master Worcester that he believes reading Nietzsche is not a sound choice. Picasso, Dali, Rothko, the list goes on and on. Gustav Mahler's Third Symphony includes a Nietzsche song, and without Also Sprach Zarathustra, Richard Strauss would not have begun to compose the music of the same name that starts Kubrick's 2001. Psychologists hailed his insights on dark feelings we'd rather avoid. No one knew themselves better than Nietzsche, was the considered opinion of Freud. His work still divides and perplexes. He's one of the great sloganeers, a colourful prophet of nihilism, full of vibrant, bizarre ideas, including eternal recurrence, a philosophical conceit in which he imagines history will repeat and repeat and repeat. His fundamental message being, to all women and all men, live this day as if you must live it over and over again, which echoes the scene he imagined on finding himself at death's door. Was that life? He asks the Grim Reaper. Then I say to you, once more,